Well, welcome back. I know we skipped a week, right? This is going to be our third installation of this series called A Shepherd's Look at the 23rd Psalm. Over the last 2 weeks, we looked at the first verse, the first phrase of the first verse, and we discovered some really interesting stuff about this one who wants to be our shepherd. And we also looked at what our attitude is supposed to be if we actually want to become one of his sheep. All right? This week, we're going to try to shine some light on the second phrase of this entire psalm. There's only 6 verses in the psalm, but I think we've discovered so far that there's really a lot more than what we've gotten used to saying as we recite this psalm. Now, depending on the translation that you usually use, the words may vary just a little bit, but the meaning is undeniable. It doesn't change. Now, I don't know how many translations there actually are. Anybody have any idea how many translations of the Bible there are? Right? I don't have any idea how many there are. I know that I personally own 44. 44. Isn't that crazy? There's only 2 of them that I can't read. There's one that's Latin and one that's Spanish. It was part of a package of something that I bought. But I own 44, and there's probably a half a dozen or more that I use on a regular basis. All right, but I want to read some of these to you because I want you to understand that as we read different translations, the words are going to change a little bit, but the meaning of this doesn't change at all. In the King James Version, it says, "He maketh me to lie down in green pastures." All right, we've heard this before. The Contemporary English Version says, "You let me rest in fields of green grass." The Holman Christian Standard Bible says, "He lets me lie down in green pastures." Message Bible says, "You have bedded me down in lush meadows." NIV, New International Version says, "He makes me lie down in green pastures." And Young's literal translation says, "In pastures of tender grass, he causeth me to lie down." All right? So you see, the words are all very, very similar, right? But the meaning doesn't change. Do you have any idea, though, as we talk about lying down in a pasture in a field, do you have any idea what it takes to get a sheep to lie down anywhere? Any idea? All right, Phillip Keller says that sheep are very peculiar in the way that their nature and their composition is such that it is nearly impossible to get them to lie down anywhere unless 4 specific criteria are met. Are you ready for these? All right, the first one is, because of their timidity, how shy and how easily shaken they are, sheep refuse to lie down unless they're completely free of fear. Completely. Otherwise, you can't get them to lie down. Number 2, because of the social behavior within a flock, a sheep will refuse to lie down unless it is completely free of friction with others of the same kind. Number 3, if tortured by parasites or by pests, a sheep cannot lie down until it is completely free of all agitation. Number 4, a sheep will not lie down as long as it's searching for food. As long as it's hungry, you can't get it to lie down. Now, as for people, if we talk about lying down and resting, how much rest or recuperation do we actually get if we just stand? If you do absolutely nothing else, can you rest? It really doesn't happen, does it? Now, I've been known to fall asleep sitting down, but I have never been known to fall asleep standing up. Probably not good for the face, right? Did you fall down? Listen, if we require at some point just standing up all the time, if you do nothing else and it still drains your energy, at some point you're going to have to sit down or you're going to have to lie down in order to rest, right? In order for a sheep to rest, it has to be completely free of fear. It has to be completely free of friction. It has to be completely free of all agitation. And it can't be unsatisfied. It can't be hungry. The interesting observation is that only the shepherd is capable of providing rescue from these factors. Do you get this? A sheep cannot satisfy these on their own. It can't alleviate its own fears. It is not equipped to deal with the friction and the internal personality, political struggles within the flock. It can't do it. It cannot rectify a pest or a parasite problem that's plaguing it. And a sheep is incapable of satisfying its own hunger. Do you get this? A sheep can be led to a pasture, and it can eat the grass that's on the ground. But as soon as the grass is gone, if you were to leave it there, it'd starve to death. It can't climb a tree to grab some fruit. It can't stalk something and pounce on it and kill it to eat. It's incapable of satisfying its own needs. Only the shepherd is capable of doing that. They have no offensive or defensive characteristics beyond running away. That's it. Do you get that? Isn't that sad? Only the shepherd is capable of satisfying it. So listen, if the shepherd is responsible for eliminating fear, reducing friction, removing all agitation, and satisfying, do you hear all that? Does that change a little bit when you say the words, "The Lord is my shepherd"? He's capable, and only He's capable of removing your fear, eliminating the friction. Do you get this? All right. In his book, Keller talks about a friend that came to visit him one time. All right. He said, came to visit the ranch, and the car pulls up, the door opened, and out pops a Pekingese puppy. Now, I read this story, and I just blew right on by that. I didn't stop to hesitate with that. I just continued to read this until I got to the end, and then I had to go back. Because do you know what this looks like? Do you know what a Pekingese puppy looks like? Okay, I didn't know if you knew this or not, but here it is. This is the Pekingese puppy, all right? Pretty vicious, huh? This is a Pekingese puppy. Not so bad, but do you realize that this is all it took to cause 200 of his sheep to run across the pasture for their lives? They flipped out. Isn't that crazy? Listen, sheep are they're so easily shaken. It's a documented fact that sometimes pregnant ewes, all right, a pregnant sheep, after they've been chased by a dog or some kind of other predator, all right, have been so easily shaken that they've actually slipped that unborn young. They actually abort their unborn lambs out of such fear. Isn't that sad? Phillip Keller says this. He says, in the course of time, I came to realize that nothing so quieted and reassured the sheep as to see me in the field. The presence of their master and owner and protector put them at ease as nothing else could do. In the Bible, through Jesus' very words, He confirms that there is a plan for your life. But if we're not connected and not submitted to the one who wrote the screenplay for your life every day, do you realize that your chances of ever finding the safest and the most productive path for your life fall to less than the odds of winning the lottery? Do you get this? Nobody ever won the lottery because they understood the process and they followed the directions and won, right? This is a complete chance. This is just a random event, and yet people are still winning, right? But there is zero chance. There is no chance whatsoever of ever discovering your God-designed, God-assigned purpose, not through random event and not through any human calculation. We may not have curly tails and fleece, right? But this world is not a stranger to observing the people that go through it every day. And they do all the best things that they can to survive and just fly under the radar, right? We don't want troubles. But the moment something starts circling the corral, the moment danger shows up, they run like sheep, as though they have no shepherd for direction or protection. And the truth is that we don't even need a valid imminent threat, right? Because just like the sheep who ran from the Pekingese puppy, as soon as something out of the ordinary strikes our lives, we run with our hands in the air like Kermit the Frog. Ah! Listen, the unknown and the unexpected, the unclear and the uncertain, the unidentifiable, the unrecognizable, these are all potentially panic-producing cousins that will attack our lives if we don't become and remain connected and close to the shepherd. Many people, just like Thoreau said, he said, live lives of quiet desperation. What does that mean? It means they're always expecting tragedy. They're always afraid of the worst. They're always fearing the worst, and they always fail to experience life the way God intended for them to experience it. We've got to understand that this is not how God designed us to live. This is not what His plan is for us. There are professionals in life, right? Some through certification, some through self-proclamation, right? Through almost every area of life as we experience it, right? These are the people who have committed themselves to perfecting some specific focus, right? They've dedicated their lives to becoming an authority in some area of their specific desire. You understand this? All right. We find this in areas like medicine, information technology, sports, finance, real estate. You see these concepts? They're big ideas, but within them there are many, 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 many specialties where somebody can focus and become an authority. You get this? All right, you follow? Okay. Anytime that someone deemed ultimately proficient in like one of these areas arrives on scene in our lives, their reputation brings this perceived potential for restoration, rectification, or at a very basic minimum, confirmation. What does that mean? All right, sounds kind of weird. Let me see if I can put this in an example. Take your car to the mechanic. Go visit the doctor. Sit with an attorney. Consult with a personal trainer or a dietitian. Call an electrician or a plumber and have them come to your house. You see where I'm going with this? Listen, if you did that, if you've gone to any of these events, had any of these appointments, you did so because you've got some issue that you don't know how to fix, right? And when you call them, you will await their final verdict, and you will be ready to trust their answer, right? Look, it may not be the process or the procedure. It may not be the effort required that you're interested in. It may not be the cost that you want to bear, but you are already prepared to listen to their opinion, right? That's why you consulted them in the first place. All right, you agree with me? You follow this? When we've got some problem that we don't know how to fix, we consult those who know because we don't, right? If this is the case, then why are there so many people who live in a world where this process is so prevalent, who struggle so much to recognize God as the professional who has the solution to their problems, and not only trust Him to have the solution to the problem, but to make available the resources to rectify the situation completely? I don't understand. I believe this is the case for most people because they're connected not in the way that God has made Himself available. Do you get this? If they're not connecting with God in the way that He's saying, look, here I am, and this is what I'm willing to do, this is what I want to do in your life, this is how I want to affect you. If they don't have that, then they have this faulty perception and they have these inaccurate expectations. If we fail to get connected and stay connected in communication to the one who created us, do you remember we talked about this? The one who actually says that we are the object of His affection and attention. If we don't get connected this way, then we will chase after every unsuitable, every insufficient substitute. And as we chase those substitutes, we'll then end up kind of bracing in apprehension, right? Bracing for shock, waiting for that answer from that solution. Do you see what I'm saying? Not knowing or hoping that it's just going to give us something to solve our problem. Have you ever watched a movie that really put you on the edge of your seat? Maybe it even put you in the seat next to you in somebody's lap. Right? You ever watched something that really shook you up? Did you ever go back and watch it again? If you did, then what you discovered was that there were still places that would shake you up. They would cause you to flinch or cringe or maybe even cry. But you knew, in the end, you knew how it was going to turn out, right? Have you ever been so freaked out? Maybe it was in the same movie. Maybe you even did like a ride at an amusement park, right? But you got so freaked out that you began talking to yourself, explaining the situation. It's just a ride. People do it all the time. You're gonna be fine, right? You've done this, right? Or you see the movie and go, it's just a movie. It's just actors. They're following a script, right? If you haven't done it, you've known people that did it, right? Why do we do this? Why? Because having hope by clinging to the truth gives us an ability to endure what is not ordinary. Do you understand that? Having hope by clinging to the truth, right? It's just a movie. It's just a ride. I'm going to be fine. Right? Having hope by clinging to the truth gives us an ability to endure what is not ordinary. These things are fictitious. These things are fabricated. The movie, the ride, that kind of stress. But what do we do when the circumstances that we're suddenly having to face are real? What do we do? My car just got repossessed. I just lost my job. My addictions are destroying my life. My marriage is over. And the last however many years and my future that I thought I had are now, they don't even look like they exist anymore. Social services just showed up at my door with a sheriff, banging on the door, demanding to come in, spewing accusations. My spouse is in the hospital and the prognosis isn't good. My child just left my house and is running at 90 miles an hour straight toward the things that I spent my whole time trying to get them to avoid. What do we do when the circumstances of life become real and they become that kind of scary? What happened to clinging to the truth that would give us hope to endure something that isn't ordinary? Fear and anxiety are the byproducts of the unknown and the uncertain. Do you understand that? And these will cause, without a doubt, a disconnected sheep to run away wherever it goes in search of a solution. But do you understand that this is not how God designed us to function? Over the last couple of weeks, we've covered some Bible verses, right, that have fit into the phrases, but I'm going to repeat two of them right now because they just fit right here. 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given us a spirit of fearfulness, but of power, of love, and of sound judgment. John 16:33, I've told you these things so that in me, you may have perfect peace and confidence. In the world, listen, in the world you will have tribulation and trials, distress and frustration, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. Look, these verses are just two of the tools that we have to face off against the challenges and the trials and the difficulties that will inevitably become part of our lives. These are the things that we begin using, like we use the truth against the movie and the ride. Oh, it's just a movie, it's just a ride. Listen, these are the things that we're supposed to use to approach the unusual, the uncomfortable, and the unexpected stuff in our lives. Look, God did not give us fear. And He does not want you to live in fearfulness. Look at Joshua 1:6, 7, and 9. Be strong and courageous, for you will distribute the land I swore to your fathers to give to them as an inheritance. Above all, be strong and very careful, very courageous, to carefully observe the whole instruction my servant Moses commanded you. Listen, do not turn from it to the right or to the left, so that you may have success wherever you go. Haven't I commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Listen, God, if you have submitted to His ownership as your shepherd, if you've committed to follow Him, listen, He already is fully aware of what may be circling your corral. And He wants you to understand two things. One, He says, I have already overcome everything that this world and this life could ever choose to dump on you. He said, look, I've already overcome it. I've seen how it turns out. I don't want you to get all worked up about this. I just want you to follow as close as you can, and I want you to trust me. If we're willing to follow him and to stay close mentally, emotionally, spiritually. God says, I have the solutions for those things that are circling the corral. He says, if you can get there, then I want you to accept, and then I want you to apply this truth. Look at John 10, 7 to 15. So Jesus said again, quote, I assure you, I am the door for the sheep. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep didn't listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. He's the door. They'll come in, they'll go out, they'll find pasture. A thief comes to only steal and to kill and destroy, but I have come so that they may have a life and may have it in abundance. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for his sheep. The hired man, since he is not the shepherd and doesn't own the sheep, leaves them and runs away when he sees a wolf coming. The wolf then snatches and scatters them. This happens because he is a hired man and doesn't care about the sheep. But I am the good shepherd. I know my sheep, and they know me, as the Father knows me and I know the Father. I lay down my life for the sheep. How's that for a little truth to cling to get through something that is not familiar, that is unknown, that is scary, that is suddenly out of the ordinary? Look, this is really important data because too many people completely overlook or they just dismiss it. All this talk about sheep and pastures and wolves. Listen, it's become cliche. It's become so metaphorical because church presents it this way. But I want to clear this up. All right? There is nothing metaphorical about this one who says, I am the only door. There is nothing cliche about his purpose, who says that my purpose is to bring life, and not just to bring it, but to make it abundant. There is nothing metaphorical about the one who says he lays down his life for those who belong to him. Notice that he didn't say laid down his life like it was a thing of the past or something that happened once. This is the really good shepherd. Not the apprentice shepherd, not the shepherd in training. This is the professional who has dedicated his existence to becoming the authority in the area of his interest, which is you. This is the vigilant shepherd, not the hired help and not the babysitter. This shepherd is committed to those who are his, those who chose to come under his care and under his vigilance. If you say that you are a follower of Jesus Christ, but you're not living in a submitted, committed, obedient life, then you are nothing but a fence crawler. Remember we talked about fence crawlers last week? Fence crawlers are always looking to get out, always trying to be somewhere else. The grass is always greener. Listen, if you're not following in a submitted, committed, interactive relationship, then you're a fence crawler, and this is the problem. Because the shepherd cannot do in your life what he desires to do, what he's already doing for those sheep who choose to stay close enough for him to watch over and to protect. He cannot provide this peaceful environment in which you could lie down, in which he will do exactly as he promises to do, if he is not the professional you seek to set right all of the things that twist out of shape what you consider the normal of your life. Sheep, because of their timidity, refuse to lie down until all of their fear is gone. So we must learn to recognize the puppies jumping out of the car from the wolves circling the corral, and in both cases, we must be more willing to remain within his reach than to run like Kermit at the first sight of anything that isn't green. The second source from which the shepherd delivers the sheep is that of tension, rivalry, and this cruel competition within the flock. In every animal society, all right, there is already this established order of dominance of status, right? In a pen full of chickens, it's called the pecking order, right? Within cattle, it's called the horning order. You can kind of get a visual for that one, right? With sheep, it's called the budding order. All right? Keller explains that in every single flock, that there is always one cunning, arrogant, domineering old ewe who has to run the show. Now, if you listen to that, boy, is there some parallels in that, but I'm not going to stop there. Listen, the particular sheep, this one makes it her job to point out to everyone who gets to walk where she wants, who gets to lie down where she wants, who gets to eat where she wants, and she does it by ramming into everyone that she believes is below her in an effort to establish her authority. This is how she does it. Listen as Keller describes one of these events. It's a crack-up. Hundreds and hundreds of times I've watched as an austere old ewe walked up to a younger one, which might have been feeding contentedly and resting quietly in some sheltered spot. She would arch her neck, tilt her head, dilate her eyes, and approach the other with this stiff-legged gait. All of this was saying in unmistakable terms, move over, out of my way, give ground or else. And if the other ewe did not immediately leap to her feet in self-defense, she would be butted unmercifully. Or if she did rise to accept the challenge, one or two strong thrusts would soon send her scurrying for help. Here's another one of those phrases that you got to get the parallel. Underneath this domineering old ewe is a succession of sheep that will do the exact thing because they will butt all of those that they believe are below them in an effort to maintain their own territory. Because of this rivalry and this tension and this collision to set up status, there's friction in the flock. It's always there. Sheep cannot lie down and rest as long as they feel like they have to jump up and they got to stand up for their rights and they've got to defend against somebody who's going to encroach on their territory. And we've all done this. You understand, whether you're at home or at school or at work, that there's a food chain, right? And you've identified the bigger sheep just out of self-preservation. And then you mark your territory and you're ready to defend it against anyone who rises up and figures they're going to come and get yours, right? I mean, isn't this how life works? The food chain? You figure out where you belong. You don't mess with the ones. All right, listen. There's a problem with this. Listen to what Keller said. He said, this continuous conflict and jealousy within the flock can be a most detrimental thing. Sheep become edgy, tense, discontented, and restless. They lose weight and become irritable. But one point that always interested me very much was that whenever I came into view and my presence attracted their attention, the sheep quickly forgot their foolish rivalries and stopped their fighting. The shepherd's presence made all the difference in their behavior. Isn't that interesting? But I want to add something to that, because as important as the presence of the shepherd adjusts the behavior of the sheep, listen, the proximity of the sheep to the shepherd when he's around is just as important. Because you can sit in your classroom and the teacher may walk in, but if you're in the back or there's people standing in front of you, you're still going to do what you choose to do, won't you? If you're at work and the boss's voice is still within earshot, but you're in your office, you still have the ability to do what you want to do, don't you? Listen, the proximity of the sheep to the presence of the shepherd is just as important, and it works whether you're in the corral or you're in the cubicle. So what's wrong with trying to survive? What's wrong with maintaining what you've worked so hard to get, even if it takes butting a few heads? Why is that a problem? Look at this passage in Ezekiel 34:15. I will tend my flock and let them lie down. This is the declaration of the Lord God. I will seek the lost, bring back the strays, bandage the injured, I will strengthen the weak, and I will destroy the fat and the strong. I will shepherd them with justice. Therefore, this is what the Lord God says to them. See, I myself will judge between the fat sheep and the lean sheep. Since you have pushed with flank and shoulder and butted all the weak ones with your horns until you scattered them all over, I will save my flock, and they will no longer be prey for you. I will judge between one sheep and another. Listen, in any business, in any office, in any family, in any community, any church, any human organization, whether it's big or it's small, is the struggle for recognition. And most all of us can be sucked into the fight to be top sheep. Sounds like a reality program, right? Top sheep. Nah. Right? Listen, but the truth is that you can't turn on the TV without seeing a reality show that is set up so that a bunch of people are fighting, squabbling, haggling, competing over something which is only going to produce what? One winner and a whole bunch of losers. Do you see how the enemy has gone to such trouble in every area of our lives to get us to believe that this is how it's supposed to work, this is how we're supposed to behave, because it's just the opposite of what the Bible tells us we're supposed to do. We butt and we fight and we quarrel and we compete to get ahead, and people get hurt. In contrast to this, the picture in the psalm, in this picture we see God's people being able to lie down in quiet, peaceful contentment. One of the most identifying characteristics of a true follower of Jesus Christ, a sheep that belongs to that shepherd, is a sense of contentment. Now, I'm not saying that you've got to walk around singing Kumbaya wearing Birkenstocks with daisies in your hair, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not saying that the Christian life is completely carefree and strictly holistic. I'm not. But what I am saying is this, about contentment. What I'm saying is that true followers of Jesus Christ, if they're living lives that are submitted, committed, obedient lifestyles, they will be able to demonstrate more collected and functional moments during the normal days and through the storms with more frequency and grace than those who are always poised to run as soon as the unfamiliar car door opens. Do you see what I'm saying? In his own unique way, Jesus, during his earthly life, he made some things clear. And one of them was that the first are going to become last, and the last are going to be first. It's not difficult to see what he's talking about in a passage like Ezekiel. When he refers to the first, it's in the context of his personal, intimate affection. Because there's not a shepherd alive worth his weight in wool who is not overly concerned about the poor, weak sheep who gets butted around by all the domineering ones. Keller said there was something about the sheep that impressed him. He said he observed that the less aggressive sheep often were far more quiet, contented, and rested. He said there's definitely an advantage to being bottom sheep. He observed and he said, look, every time I walked in, he goes, it was the presence of the shepherd that stomped out and got rid of all of the rivalry and all of the nonsense. Look, God does not call us to be doormats. Do you understand this? He doesn't call us to be in contentious competition with all the other sheep. He calls us to become welcome mats. Why? Because the other sheep are going to walk up to the fence and they're going to check out the door at some point. And we better not be the no soliciting sign. When our eyes are on our shepherd, on our master, and not on everybody else, ours can be a place of peace. It would be really smart to remind ourselves that in the end, it's going to be he who decides and judges what our status is going to be. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm completely okay with trading out and having the affection and the attention of my good shepherd instead of having a prominent place in society, especially when you understand that in order to get the prominent place, we've got to fight and argue and have bitter rivalry with all of those that are a part of our everyday life. Now, the list that I used earlier of the examples, you remember that I lost my job, my addictions, the marriage is over. Listen, in most cases, you're going to find preachers who will use hypothetical lists of things to get you to think about the real circumstances, just hoping that they're going to plop right in your life somewhere and you're going to go, ooh, he's talking to me. Let me just tell you, the whole list that I rattled off before, every single one of those comes out of my personal life. And I'm going to tell you that during some of those, I ran like a sheep. During other ones of those, I was able to just shrug and go, okay, to just accept it and choose to follow. And when I did, you see, the shepherd was able to do the miraculous that only he could do when I chose to be within reach and smart enough to submit. When I decided to submit and follow Him no matter what, and I mean no matter what, when worship became my highest priority, second only to obedience, this is when, during these intimate, intentional interactions, this is when God showed me that the cute little puppies and the ugly, vicious wolves, they're all the same to Him. Today we've looked at 2 of the 4 factors that so adversely affect a sheep's ability to rest. The shepherd is the only one who can satisfy these needs. And hopefully you're beginning to see the important role that the shepherd plays in the sheep's life. And what I hope you're seeing is the parallel of how the exact same thing is what happens in people's lives. I want to take and encourage you to just set out some time today, just a little. And I want you to examine a few things and make a few of your own observations. How do you respond to the events in your life that pop up unexpectedly? Do you just freak out and run before you even get a good look at what's coming? As the details of these particular situations begin to take form and you begin to see, where are you? Where do you choose to be in proximity to the shepherd who says, I want to bless you and protect you and guide you and create the safe environment for you? Where are you in proximity to Him? Do you exist? Do you live in a place? Do you live close enough that says, ooh, as soon as I see the problem, there's automatically no doubt that the shepherd is already aware of what's circling my corral? Or do you just run because any place is better than where you are in your vantage point right now, and you just hope that eventually He'll catch up and figure out where you stop to hide? How do you deal with the territorial butting that happens in your personal life? Do you always feel yourself rising up in defense and always butting back? Do you find it impossible to lie down and rest because you're always certain that there's another attack coming? Maybe you're the old you who spends all of your time butting everybody in an effort to establish your authority. The way that you respond to these questions is an indicator of the truth about the relationship you have or don't have with the one who says He is the really good shepherd, with Jesus Christ, the one who says that He lays down His life for those that are His. The Lord is my shepherd, and I shall not want. And He makes it so that I get to lie down in green pastures. Father, we come before You and we just pause to exalt Your name. We acknowledge that You are our shepherd, and because of that, we don't have to worry, we don't have to want. All we really need to do is just stay close enough to hear You and smart enough to submit. God, thank You for what You've done, what You've shown us so far in this psalm that we've all gotten so used to reading. And we just read through it, and it's become so metaphorical and so cliche. But God, I ask that You continue to reveal to us the truth of this, what David meant, what he was really trying to communicate, how this really could change everything about our lives if we'll just understand the truth of the role as a shepherd that You want to be and our role as a sheep, and how much better, how much easier, how much safer, how much more content and peaceful our life could be if we would just stay close to the shepherd. We thank You for the way that You bless us, the way You take care of us, the way You guide us, the way You look after us, even though we don't deserve any of this. We ask You to help us to understand. We ask You to help us to be submitted, to be committed, to pray with hearts that are just looking for an opportunity to be obedient. And we ask all these things, one, so that you are glorified, two, so that we are obedient. And we ask in the name of Jesus Christ.